So it is 1 o'clock. Shall we begin? Dr. Hickey, we're good to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. First, good afternoon, council members. Welcome, a warm welcome to each one of you. I'm thrilled to be here as your new facilitator. And today, starting right at 1 o'clock, of course, we will start our actions to ensure that we focus on building a learning culture that's aligned not only to the charge and goals of the council, but also on behalf of all Connecticut students. So I look forward to working alongside of you to hopefully make these actions easier. So let's begin. Kati, if you could conduct the roll call.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Maureen Brummett.
She's here.
Here, my mic wouldn't unmute. Thank you.
Dr. Michael Coyne.
I
Dr.
think I
Martin
see
Gillis.
him in the list here.
Kim Healy. Dr. Melissa Jenkins.
Present.
And I think I just saw Dr. Michael Coyne. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, hi, sorry about that. Before I couldn't unmute, so, but I'm here. Good to see everybody.
Stephanie Lockhart. Dr. Tamu Lucero.
I'm here.
Thomas Nuccio.
Present.
Fran Rabinowitz.
I'm here.
Bianca Rivera. Lisa Thomas.
I'm here, and could you please check the waiting room for Kim Healy?
Thank you, Lisa. And Susan Witkowski. Roll call is now complete.
Thank you very much, Kati. Our next order of business is to accept the minutes, and I will start by asking the question, do we have a motion to approve the minutes dated February 27th, 2024? And please identify yourself if you are making a motion for Kati.
So moved, Lisa Thomas.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second to this motion? Second, anyone?
I can second, sure. Melissa Hickey.
Thank you, Dr. Hickey. Discussion on the motion from the council. Any comments, please? And again, please identify yourself for Kati. Lisa?
I just have a couple of corrections, please.
Sure.
If you look at Roman numeral 2 under the approval of the minutes, it's a little confusing. I didn't approve the minutes. Somebody must have made a motion to approve the minutes and somebody seconded the motion, but I don't have the authority to approve them myself. It says Lisa Thomas approved minutes. So it should say whoever made the motion to approve the minutes. Maybe Dr. Hickey asked for a motion and I made the motion and Kim seconded it. I honestly don't recall. And the same thing needs to happen further on concerning the number of November 14th minutes. The language there needs to be fixed further on. Lisa Thomas approved the minutes again, that would have to be on a, show of hands by the whole council.
And feeling like readers. They are readers. They're reading what's on the page. And so that identity of being a reader, right? Think about kids who play music.
Excuse me, we do have somebody who would please, if you would mute your mic so that we can focus on our work here. Thank you.
Right? It becomes part.
So does that make sense so far on the minutes?
I'm thinking that we could make that adjustment, and Kati will take care of that. We may have to, of course,
Okay.
review the video from the last meeting. But I think that as we move forward, we certainly could move to approve those minutes as amended once the discussion part is complete.
And then under Roman numeral 3, I think there are just some words missing. Kim Healy asked if council members can be copied on the legislation. She is being reached out to and asked questions. And then I think it should be so she can better inform legislators and communicate appropriately. It's not clear who the them is.
Kim Healy, before we make any final changes to that section, I'm thinking you may want to comment on your intent of what you wanted the minutes to reflect, since I believe it was you who made the comment.
Yeah, I think I didn't need to be copied on the legislation. I think that might have been the section where I requested that we be copied on any communications with districts that are sent that reference the work of the council.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
So then again, I think my response would be the same as facilitator, Lisa, that we would amend as required from your statements, including the language that you're referring to now that Kim has clarified her intent as well.
Right. And I think since we're functioning under Robert's rules, that's required. Thank you.
Any other discussion before we move to approve?
Yes, I do. So on our agenda from February, number 5 was discussion of path forward. I believe at that time I read aloud a statement that was in letters to districts that I had referred to earlier, and it identified work that technical assistance and some other things, steps forward for full implementation for the districts. And that we needed to prioritize that for our next meeting, and because we didn't have any time to get to that. So I would like to see that included as a comment under number 5, and that we did table number 5 because we didn't have enough time, and we also tabled number 6. And so number 7 should be identified as closing meeting / adjourned. One of the things that was not noted here was that there was an affirmative action taken by the members of the council with all of our hands raised in voting to support meeting in person for this meeting. So that was not clear, that we actually, fully agreed that we wanted to meet in person, and yet we are here in a virtual world.
And since we're having the conversation actually was about a hybrid opportunity on which we voted. So
You're correct. You're correct. I'm sorry. Yes, we wanted to give obviously everyone the opportunity to attend our meeting.
And I have a question too, about the notes or the minutes. So when we also do the minutes, we go back and listen to what was said verbatim, and write that into the minutes. do we write what was said word by word, or do we include the intent as well? How do we go about doing that as a council?
Lisa's probably the expert on this, but I mean, in the minutes I've seen on lots of boards that I've been on, it usually is the intent. You try to keep them as brief as possible.
Lisa, did you want to respond? I see that your hand is raised, so I'll keep my comment for after your response.
You're on mute,
Your
please.
mic.
You're on mute.
Thank you. I agree with Kim. Typically, minutes are a summary of what's discussed. I mean, each body can decide to have more detailed minutes depending on the level of clarity they want to have for themselves when they review those minutes, or the level of clarity they want the public to be able to have when they review those minutes. When an action is taken by the body, it should definitely be reflected in the minutes. All items that were on the agenda should be reflected in the minutes. So if an item is continued or is not addressed, that should be indicated in the minutes as well. That's my opinion. That's how I have always run my meetings as the person elected to do that in my community. And so I think there's a decision that the council needs to make about transparency.
And just to respond to Kim and to Lisa, as well as Dr. Hickey, I do think that the breakout sessions that we're having today as part of this meeting really is timely because these are things that we will be discussing in order to craft our council as high performing. We all are here with a commitment to do the best work that we can on behalf of our Connecticut students and their reading instruction. So I think that if we can finish this order of business and make sure that I believe some of the strategies that are open-ended questions that you all received by email, we can add these types of talking points as recommendations for the benefit of the entire group. So if that works with everybody, unless there's additional discussion around approving the minutes. Hearing none and seeing none, we're going to move forward with all those in favor of approving the minutes of February 27th. Please say aye. Or raise your hand, whatever works for you.
I'm voting aye to approve the minutes as amended, please.
Yep. Yes, I did right as amended. Thank you. Any opposed, say nay or raise your hand. Hearing or seeing none, the motion passes to approve the minutes as amended. Thank you all for your good discussion. And before we get into our breakout sessions today with a little bit of preface to set the scene, Dr. Hickey, do you have some comments that you would like to make to the group, please?
Sure. So thank you so much, Dr. Stoltz. So appreciate you being here today and facilitating. So due to some unforeseen circumstances, we did have to hold today's meeting entirely virtually. So we really appreciate your understanding at this time. I was told that due to the current format, we would not be able to do reactions or hand raising or chat today, but I am seeing some people raise their hand. So I'm not quite certain what's happening there. We are doing a different format, hopefully just for this one meeting as well. Usually it goes right to YouTube. This time we are recording through Teams, and then we'll have to post to YouTube. So I just wanted to note that. So thank you so much for your understanding. This is an anomaly. I did want to say too that as you know, we noted in our last meeting, the council has been an establishment for 2 years now. We've been in existence, and as a council, we've been evolving. Membership has been shifting, and as it was noted in today's agenda, Dr. Stoltz will be facilitating us and having us confirm our consensus making process, discussing the proposed items and topics that came up last time that will assist us in crafting the way forward and providing that technical assistance to the districts that were denied a waiver as it was legislated. You remember last time we met as well, we did discuss all of the current and proposed supports that are coming for districts. And we also discussed how districts who did not get the waivers do have first choice or first pick to these opportunities. So thank you all so much as we continue to craft and move forward with this. I look forward to our conversation today, and I turn it over to Dr. Stoltz.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hickey. Very helpful. And of course, my first time facilitating, we have some technical changes, right? So thank you. Before we, or as a part of starting our activity today in our breakout sessions, I think defining consensus building and using the consensus decision-making process as part of how the council operates deserves a little bit of a definition. So from my research on Google and reading other relevant leadership articles, of course, it includes setting group expectations. So sometimes in order for us to move to our next level of work, we need to kind of revisit those expectations. Voicing our own opinions on behalf of our constituents, on behalf of students, is also a part of this with a consideration for diverse perspectives. I think that's why we have the council membership that we do, so that we listen to one another and think very deeply about some of these conversations that we have. And then, of course, the most important is reaching agreement. And the gold star is reaching unanimous agreement. So just with those things in mind, today we are going to form into 3 breakout groups that Kati will be placing us in at random. And your work is in the next 30 minutes or so to respond to the questions that were sent to you in email after you read the article. Whether you've read it already on forming, storming, norming, and performing, then you want to just do a little glimpse at some of those phrases and words that jump out at you as wanting to be the best counsel we can on behalf of our students. Your work is to respond to those questions. In your breakout group, because there's only going to be about 3 of you in each group, there's only one person required to be the recorder-reporter. So you don't need to have multiple people doing something where they're trying to capture the discussion. The discussion is the work. So select somebody who can serve as that one role. And when we come back, we're going to look at the strategies that your group, each group has assembled for us to move toward or become a high-performing council. And then, in fact, we will vote, a final vote, because we do have a little bit larger group this time, I believe, than last time, on the 4 items of meet in person and or conduct hybrid meetings, request and receive presentation slides in advance, allow public comment during these council meetings, and any other items that your group feels and thinks would benefit the functioning of the council. So without any further ado here, I would like, yes, Lisa?
Is it possible for us to just put some timelines on the agenda so that we're able to make sure we're going to get through these things? So for instance, crafting the path forward is still the last item on the agenda, and that's something that we also did not address at the last meeting, but I know for some of us feels like a very critical element. So, and you talked about being in breakout rooms for about a half an hour. So is there a way to maybe put, time frames on each of these agenda items so that we can get to them?
I think it's a great idea. That can be one of the strategies that your group comes up with as well. But now that it's 1:20, I would say you have probably 20 minutes so that we have enough time for discussion. And then I know that Dr. Hickey has a few summary slides that will bring us to crafting the path forward, as well as the discussion points from your breakouts today. So if that works, Lisa?
I guess it will have to. Thank you.
Okay, then 20 minutes and your breakout rooms will automatically, hopefully, rejoin the larger group at 1:40. Thank you. Ati, if you can divide everyone up into three groups, please.
I just did it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, but we're showing a lot more people here. Let me see. Once again, I just want to make sure they're all council members. No, okay. We've had to do a different format this time, so I'm going to have to redo that and try it again just with council members. So please give me a moment to do this. I'll have to manually assign people to each room. 3 rooms, create. I'm just going to go down the list they give me, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so apologies. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, room 1 is ready. 1, 2, 3. Room 2 should be ready. Try that again. 1, 2, 3.
Are we going to get automatically put into our rooms? Because I don't see anything on the screen.
Yeah, it's not happening. I'm having to do this one by one and they're not letting me. I have room 1 is set. Did room 2 go in? No. I'll try it again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, room 2. Yes, room 2 should be set.
It
Once
doesn't appear
again,
as anyone has moved into a room.
room 2 should have Melissa Jenkins, Mike Coyne, Fran. Room 2.
Fran, I can see you on my screen. So are you in a room yet, Fran? I'm
Oh,
thinking not.
Yeah, no,
No,
Okay.
no,
Dr.
and now
Hickey.
room 1 went away too. Could we?
Are we able to have just a full group conversation then?
Yes.
let's just,
Yeah,
Uh,
why don't we shift to that?
Plan B. Let's go
Yeah,
to Plan B.
thanks.
Okay, and I'm thinking that that is really the only alternative here.
Correct.
So, can we take maybe 3 minutes for a quick read, just to ensure that everybody has had the opportunity to read the article? So I'm going to time you, and it is 1:25 at 1:28. Please be prepared to start to answer the questions. And actually, what I think we can do is I'm looking at the list here, and I'm going to tell you in advance what questions you're going to answer like a jigsaw. So I'm just going to call your names out. So Dr. Michael Coyne, Fran Rabinovitz, and Dr. Melissa Jenkins, if you can take number 1 as your question in your mind, so that when we get to question 1 on your list here, that's also in your email, we're going to ask you to respond to that question. Which is what
Ellen,
does perform.
Ellen, would you like me to put
Yes.
the questions into the chat so that they have both places? Would that be helpful?
Sure. Yes, very helpful. Thank you, Irene. Then question 2 is going to be Kim Healy, Lisa Thomas, and Dr. Lucero. And your question is, where does the council's current level of performance fall, et cetera? You'll see that in the chat. Then question 3 is going to be Dr. Brummett, Thomas Nuccio, and I think just the 2 of you will answer that question. And that's, what strategies does your group or your quasi group suggest as the next level of work? All of us are going to be looking at 4 so that we can vote immediately as soon as we're done with the discussion. So let's say 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes to think about how you're going to respond to those questions.
So I'm not able to put them in the chat, but if you like, I can display them really quick as a slide.
Okay, I guess we should have had a slide. Thank you.
They were sent in the email too, like we said.
One more minute. Okay, we're going to then start with, I believe group 1 is Michael Coyne, Fran Rabinovitz, and did I have, or unless everybody changed here. So if I said you were question 1, why don't we start the conversation? I'm not sure you're going to show up on my screen as designed.
So Perform for me looks like a well-oiled machine where people really know and respect each other, where we have a clear picture of what it is we are responsible for, and what it is we can contribute to. We each know each other very well, and we are able to work together as a cohesive group.
It was
Thank you,
Melissa
Fran.
Jenkins, Ellen, and I have the
Yes,
first
there you
question as
are.
well.
Yes, thank you, Melissa.
A high-performing group to me is a group that's allows the vision and mission of the group or the organization to drive our actions. A high-performing group also considers all of the team members' perspectives and views, and communicates empathy as we work together to make the vision and mission a reality. So I'm very vision and mission driven. So that's my idea of performing. And in the midst of challenge, it's the vision and mission that brings us back together when we're high performing. Because the article talks about the phases of a group. And so I think that storming is inevitable. But I think high performing, keeping your eye on the prize, brings us back to that high performing lens faster. We go through those stages faster each and every time.
Thank you,
Yeah, this is
Dr.
Mike Coyne. Yeah.
Jenkins. Yes,
Um, yeah, I couldn't have said it better than both Melissa and Fran. So I'll add to that, which is, having a real understanding of the mission and vision, and also how the procedures and the kind of norms of the group work. But yeah, 100% agree with what Melissa and Fran said.
thank you. Thank you. And we will summarize each one of these points as we go. So certainly that clear picture of responsibility in terms of what our actions are as a council are important. That vision and mission, that should lead our actions, and that yes, storming does occur in every group, but as a result of that storming, we develop a high performing council that has an exemplar as the result of our work on behalf of our students. So thank you, the three of you, for those responses. And then question 2, please.
So I'll go first. I believe, so I'm supposed to say where I think we are. So I have to say I'm relatively new, so it feels like we're in storming. Maybe others are further along than me, but I still feel there's some uncertainty in the work. And so I would say that that's where I think we are. And you feel this way when a group first comes together. And this could be just because I'm relatively new to the group that I'm feeling this way. But that's where, even when I observe the meeting, you all seem to be. So that's just some feedback. But again, I'm new, so maybe I missed some of the other stuff. But I also think that putting Ellen in place as a facilitator is probably the first next step, because they talk about that whole leadership part, someone kind of controlling the meeting so everyone else can participate in the meeting makes a lot of sense. So that's probably a good place to be, to let us step to the next stage.
Thank you, Dr. Lucero. And anyone else on our second question, please?
Lisa, do you want to go?
Sure, I can make some comments. So I've been with the council since the beginning, and I think we have definitely gone through the forming stage, but we come back to that several times as we have members coming on and off the council. So that has to be revisited. I don't know how well it's been revisited in terms of understanding who the people are who are joining us each time, or our why of being here. I think each of us has tried to explain it as we've participated in meetings. I can't say that I feel I've always been heard when I try to explain my why. So that certainly makes that piece difficult. I've often said I sit here with two hats on, and sometimes those hats are in conflict. But I bring those to the table. And I think the reason I was appointed to this council was to bring both my educator hat to the table and my municipal leader hat to the table. And I recognize, it's hard. Sometimes those are in conflict. So I think we, maybe need to understand why we're sitting here from time to time, revisit that. I have felt that it's been difficult to, I think we've all come together, obviously, for a really important reason. Sometimes it's been difficult to feel that there's a structure that we can work with. A comment has been made that we're using Robert's rules for the minutes only, but really, if you're using Robert's rules, they should really be for the duration of your entire meeting. Like, there's a reason for having that structure and that opportunity to listen to one another and follow an agenda. So, I think that's something that needs to be resolved. And I think when members of a group don't feel that there's a reliable structure in place or an equitable structure in place, it erodes confidence in leadership. So I would encourage us to think about that. And again, I agree that you move back and forth between these different places where our group functions. I don't think you stay in one place, and we need to, I think it's beneficial to acknowledge that. And I think that this council would benefit from a higher level of discussing concerns in this forum. I think the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about right now is that there are some of us on this council that have had very grave concerns for over a year now and do not feel they've been addressed. And those concerns are arising out of direct contact from the people we are representing. And it's been very difficult to address that. So that's where I feel we are in our level of performance right now.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. And
I'll just
one
quickly
other...
add for number 2.
Yes.
I think, like was said, we do have new members, and we would benefit from, redefining why we're still here. Some of us, I think I have a lot of the same concerns as Lisa do, as some of you might be aware. I think some of you aren't aware. I've sent many emails to the center and had thought they would be shared. I guess under Robert's rules, they really should have been shared. We're not supposed to communicate outside of the meetings. And when we do, those things are supposed to be brought to the attention of the council. I think, for me, performing is where we should be at this point. I would really like to see more performance. I think we've kind of gotten stuck with last year with the whole waiver process. I will tell you, I didn't think we were going to get stuck on that. I thought we would be much further along in our work in bringing the science of reading to the state of Connecticut. And the only other thing I would add is in the forming. I missed the first meeting, but I have been here since. We are an independent body of the center, and I'm not sure that we act that way. And so going forward, I would like to see us be more independent and have more control over our agendas, for sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. So just a brief summary of question 2. There seems to be a lot of congruence around falling at the storming level although there is some fluidity, as was mentioned, that sometimes there are actions taken by the council that lead us to norming or even performing. Certainly, there's some uncertainty in the work. It seems as if when new people come in, maybe there needs to be a process so that everyone knows the role and responsibilities and multiple hats of those new people coming in. And that I believe it was you, Kim, who said that you thought that the council as an independent organization would be further along. So in reflecting how we move forward, these points could certainly be addressed as part of the agenda. Number 3, the last group that we have here, the strategies from these 3 people who did question 3, please.
Yeah, it's TJ Nuccio here. So the article talks about how during the performing stage, part of it is really to maximize the stability of the team or the group that is involved. And on top of that, the article talks about how a team in this phase or stage should be more adaptable to change in membership, change of objectives and goals. Yeah.
Thank you, TJ.
And I was in that group as well. Though TJ and I didn't really have opportunity to talk to each other, but I would agree with what's already been said, that I think we're somewhere between forming and storming. And I really think the strategies or pathways forward really have to go back to what's our purpose, what's our mission, how does that relate to how we're actually operating? And I would agree to that, 2 years in, I would like to see us further along. And I would like to see that happen, but I do believe some of the suggestions made earlier will help. But we really, I think, and I sent an email about this earlier today, really need to get a sense of what really is our purpose now that all the waivers have been issued in going forward and having a meaningful role, emphasis on the word meaningful, in this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brummett. Any other comments before we go to number 4 on the list of questions and actions? So what I just heard from TJ and also from Dr. Brummett is that, again, that you both thought that we might be a little farther along. Certainly, we want to maximize all of those elements that describe the performing stage, and that having that purpose, that mission clarified for our work could be one of those things that are actions, leadership moves that could help us to move and accelerate our own work. So just to list not just A, B, C, and D that was in the chat and in your email, but we've also had a few suggestions from the group that I do think are worth examining from my lens, and that is, do we have Robert's Rules of Order throughout the meetings? Can we put timing on the agenda topics so we make sure that we're efficient and we get through? And then just revisiting perhaps some of the vision and mission so that we have some time to reflect on what the actual work is. We know that Dr. Hickey today will talk a little bit about the waiver process and also to revisit our norms. But from my lens as a facilitator, I'm a neutral party to your work. And I do think that some of the talking points and shared language that we now have around using forming, storming, norming, and performing will help us to move to performing with that same language in mind. So Dr. Hickey, I just want to ask a kind of a performative question here about these now 6 ideas that have been brought to our council, do we want to vote on them? How do we want to move forward?
Well, I actually think that's a good question because, you know, as Lisa had mentioned, we had talked about doing Robert's rules, and then we started doing it across, and then members said they would only want to do Robert's rules only for the minutes. So is that a decision too we need to put down there? You know, how do we go back to doing a full meeting of Robert's rules? Do we just keep it to what the group wanted to do about just the minutes? Because I would feel like, yes, we could definitely do a vote now. But I'm wondering if that needs to be confirmed about the Robert's rules.
Well, from my lens, of course, we do have the majority of the council here today. And I think if we just can go back and go in order here of A and B kind of go together. So maybe we'll just go through this list and make these defined as a vote. And I don't, if we're not doing Robert's Rules of Orders right now, then we could just simply do a vote. So the meet in person and conduct hybrid meetings would go for our next meeting. I do believe we have a definitive meeting scheduled in May. I don't know if we're meeting in April, so let's just leave that for right now. But do we have a show of hands or voice that say that we can meet in person, which would also include a hybrid meeting so that other people coming from far distance can join? Please raise your hand or say aye. Melissa, can you see everybody? Because I can't see everyone.
You know, maybe we should just go member by member to ensure. So Kati, could you read out the people's names? Oh wait, does Melissa, do you have, Dr. Jenkins, do you have a question?
Can I please make a comment?
Sure.
Yes.
I know we're voting, but I thought we agreed to do things by consensus. Voting and consensus are 2 different things. So
correct.
what are we going to do here, guys? Are we voting everything or are we working on the consensus model? Because, you know, I just came from another meeting where we used consensus for the special ed task force. You know, perhaps because it was hybrid, it was easier to do. But frankly, I think we have to decide on one or the other. And if it's consensus, we shouldn't be taking a vote.
As someone who's only been on a board with Robert's Rules, can you explain what consensus would mean, please?
Well, you know, I should get it. Hold on 1 minute.
Yeah, I can share the slides we've shared in the past, Fran. Sure. Let me just pull that up. Excuse me one second.
With it. It really has, for me, at least in the task force, where special ed task force, we come to it with many, many different perspectives, but this graphic, if you were, in this process has really cut down on a lot of just a lot of issues. And I never feel good about a vote. You know, I feel like people need, if we're going to work as a really performing team, then we need to really consider everybody.
Correct.
And, you know, it's consensus just means, hey, if you've got one person that violently objects to it, it doesn't go forward.
So do we simply
moment,
if anyone objects? Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's
so
exactly
does anyone,
my words.
Does anyone object? Is that what you would do? I'm sorry, I'll stop talking.
Is there anyone who objects to the suggestion to meet in person, which also allows hybrid? So those who are able to attend the meeting in person, those who are able to attend virtually are included in the meeting, our next meeting. Any objections to that? Hearing none. Our next meeting then will be hybrid, and we will find a space and keep the council informed of where that space will be, correct?
Yes, thank you. And if I could just say one thing with the gradients of agreement, I would also say to you that if you're looking for a place, CAPS is always available. It has parking, it has a large conference room and table, and it does accommodate hybrid. And we certainly can accommodate meetings just most of the time. So if you would just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Fran.
So we
Sounds
have talked
ideal.
about, I'm sorry, we have talked about and gone into the gradients of agreement, the consensus model multiple times during our meetings together. This was last from our May 2023 meeting where we talked again about our why, what, and our how, our council goals, etc. But these were the gradients of agreement that we talked about. And
They
I
were
wanna say
first
we
introduced.
yeah,
first
in
intro-
March.
yeah, First
Right,
introduced March
after-
24th of 2022. Yes.
Which would have been our first meeting, second meeting. I would have to go back and look, but this is what the visual that Fran was referring to. And I agree. I do agree. That's why I think I've had some confusion as someone who's been with this group, deciding which way are we going. So thank you for that, Dr. Stoltz. Thank you, Fran.
And thank you, Fran. Thank you, Dr. Hickey. And I did see Lisa's hand raised before we move to anybody who's disagreeing with the next two things on our agenda. Lisa, I don't know where your picture went, but I did see your hand raised.
Thank you. The conversation around Robert's rules came up earlier on in this council when minutes were published that did not include comments that I had made during a meeting. I don't know if others had noticed that their comments were excluded. And so I raised that issue and asked, and there was conversation around whether or not minutes needed to include those things. And so I firmly believe and shared my belief that comments that members make during a meeting should be included in the minutes. And so that's where we ended up with saying we're applying Robert's rules to the minutes. I think all I was asking for was to have complete minutes that reflect the conversation during these meetings. Also, Robert's rules and consensus are not mutually exclusive. So whatever the council needs to keep moving forward, all I ask is that we move forward with equitable opportunities to have our comments reflected as we move forward, and that those be memorialized in a way that we can go back and look at them. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next two suggestions from last time and then one from this time, I think are very easy to implement. And one is to receive the presentation slides in advance. We were able to do that for this meeting. I think the slides went out 2 days ago so that they were made available, and certainly we can place the time allocated to the different topics on the agenda. So hearing any nays about that, anybody who opposes those two things being added to our list of actions.
Could we amend it to include any correspondence from the center on behalf of the council be shared with members of the council?
So I think we need to have a conversation about, this is an advisory council and not a governing council, which is a little different. So in the legislation, as we've gone through with those slides, and I'll show again today, but we've talked about the role, the legislative role of the people, the members on the council. There are correspondences that go on here at the State Department that it just wouldn't be appropriate for council members or anyone else to be on that letter or memo. So I would say that we wouldn't be able to do something like that. I appreciate you bringing that up, but that's not something we can do. We have the work of the State Department of Education and memos and letters that come from the commissioner or come from myself or Irene or Dr. Hughes, that it would not be appropriate for council members to be on there. I was in the practice of updating you at each meeting as to what was going on regarding legislation, even in reference to the waivers. As you recall, we had a meeting the day of the letters, and we met with all of you before we sent out the letters. So that was another way of looping you in, so you had that information.
But again, we are specifically referred to as being required to be consulted and reviewing things. So therefore, it is work that we need to do. I mean, we are clearly given objectives from these letters. I'm not saying, I mean, you can just black out all the names and identifying information, but the last paragraph in the February 22nd letters clearly identify us as being required to do something, and therefore we should be informed of that work that we needed to do.
Well, that's what we're going to be
asking.
doing, is crafting that together. And that was from the legislation. So you're in the legislation too, right, as being members of the council. So once again, I do appreciate you bringing that forward. I think it's an important thing for all of us to note and to remember. And like Dr. Stoltz said, like I said, after this, I'm going to be showing you those same slides that I show pretty much every meeting about the role of the council members, and it's a consultative role. One that we were really going toward the consensus model around, so that we do have consensus. Even with the minutes, it really was not required that we vote them in. It was more a confirmation of what occurred, and that's why they were very broad. But based on your feedback, you were feeling like you really wanted something a little bit deeper, so we shifted in that way. But Dr. Stoltz, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yes, and I do have a thought about maybe an agenda item that we could include regularly, and that would be something like, for the good of the order, anything that comes to the state or goes out there that is deemed to be aligned and appropriate for this council to be informed about. Perhaps we can add that as a time so that we can not just share the information, but perhaps even have a little comment on it. That's just my suggestion, and certainly we can talk about that as a path forward to ensuring that the council members are informed appropriately and accordingly. So then my question previously was on receiving the presentation slides in advance and having the times listed on the agenda, and we heard no opposition to that. So we will add those to the agenda going forward. So I think one of the larger questions was allowing public comment during these meetings. Dr. Hickey, do you want me to open the floor to that discussion right now? Okay, so I don't know if I was attending a meeting when that came up. I may have seen it on the videos that I watched. So I'm just going to open it up to the floor to anyone who agrees or disagrees with having public comment during the Reading Leadership Implementation Council meetings.
I think I would have to know the purpose. You know, I always go back to what is the why, right? What is the purpose? So what would be the purpose of having people come forward to speak to the council? That would be one question I have. You know, our purpose is not to change the legislation, it's to support the center, the director, in the work that was legislated. So I guess I need to know what would be the purpose and how we would go about doing that. Those are my questions. You know, would it only be the agenda items that are up for that, just on that day? So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hickey. Any other comments, yay or nay?
Could you
Mary?
just define again what it is that we're talking about?
I do believe that previously, maybe 2 meetings ago, there was a mention of allowing public comment during the Reading Leadership Implementation Council meetings. So if there's anybody present today that may have brought that up, who would like to elaborate, otherwise I'm going to just cross that off on my list here.
So I guess the only question, the only comment I would make is, how do we then invite members of the public to come speak to us? It is part of the legislation that we are allowed to do that. So for instance, Representative Jeff Curry wanted to attend our meeting today, and Representative Kathleen McCarty. And I was not able to figure out a way to have them come to our meeting. So that's not obviously public comment, but I know that they are interested in us, again, moving forward. And they wanted to see what we would be discussing. And so if in lieu of, say, a public comment, I would ask, how do we allow for maybe inviting certain people to our meetings that we should be hearing from?
Sure. And then just to kind of clarify too, this meeting is available online live every time we have a meeting, and it's all on our public website. So people can at any time not only watch it live, but also they can watch it recorded. So we have never shut our doors to people being part of this process. We have always had our meetings within ourselves, and any guests, I would love to talk about that too. But just to clarify, all meetings are posted on the website. Anyone can access them simply by clicking on the link. And then they are recorded. Everything is posted, our minutes, our agendas, and everything is recorded, and you can watch it anytime you want.
I have really struggled to find that link, I will tell you. Normally they're in the agenda, a link to it. They're not clear where any of our stuff is. And just so the council knows, this past week it came to my attention that we were not posted to any calendar on the Department of Education site or the CGA. So I've since asked that we at least identify when our meetings are, so that people at least, you know, might contact us to ask how to access these videos.
So I will say that I was able to watch almost all of the meetings, Kim, so that after this meeting, I think what we'll do is, Dr. Hickey, if perhaps Kati could send out the link to the portal on ct.gov that houses all of the videos, so that everyone here
I don't mean
does have
afterwards.
access.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean after. I've been able to go back and watch what I've said at meetings. It's,
okay.
You know, people want to put it on their calendar. They want to be able to click on and watch us live, and be able to communicate with us. And you know, it's been a struggle to find that.
Oh, thank you. Is that Irene showing that? Thank you.
Yep. But, you know, it probably should be, that label should probably be, you know, agendas, minutes, links to meetings. Related resources doesn't, you know, really make it clear. And again, it's every meetings I've ever attended it's always been on the agenda. I'll link right to the meeting.
Well, and once again, because we've had this as our Teams meeting among us, the link goes out to members and not to interest holders at large. So those links that you have, you're privy to as your council member. Others can watch it by going online, as Irene just showed, and clicking on the link.
Right, but no, just like like we've had that too, right? I have a Board of Selectmen meeting, I have my own login, but yet on the agenda, it's the link to for the public to watch us live.
It's
So,
okay.
Dr.
I can
Hickey
find
would-
out from communications. A lot of the things you're talking about, we don't handle directly. So we'll write this down and we'll see if they're able to do that, like a YouTube link ahead of time in the agenda. Once again, the way that it's structured there, you just have to click on that big window, the big screen. It looks like, well, what Irene showed you, and then you can watch it. So you don't even need a
Right.
link. You can just click right on that and watch the whole meeting.
Fran, if we decide to meet at CAPS next time, what is it that is it something a little easier to get access to that you guys use?
I have to find out all the regulations around that before I can even comment. So let me, we're down a little bit right now in our communications department. So let me find out and have a conversation and see how we can do this in a way that is, we always have to watch the guidelines and legalities and things like that.
I
So-
think, Melissa, it'll be very similar to the Special Ed Task Force, which is in legislation, which we
Perfect.
have to live stream.
Okay.
And we are able to do that from CAPS, if
Okay.
that helps.
All right, thank you so much, Fran. I appreciate that. And just so you know too, I mean, that's a good point. Like ours isn't even legislated. We're just doing this so that the public can see and can watch. And then once again, if they can't watch right now, they can go back and watch it again.
So then the question really is the capacity to live stream our meetings. And I think that's what you're saying, Kim, correct?
I just think we should be transparent and available to the public. We're hearing that they don't know where we are. Even like I said, Representative Curry could not locate us anywhere. So.
Well,
Okay.
once again,
Yeah, I think
people can
making that-
reach out, you know.
Yeah, I think making that a little easier is good, but I know there's always, there's a number of folks that are watching today. So, there is, people have been able to watch this live. And so I think maybe just figuring out a way to make it a little easier for folks to join if they want to.
And I think, Lisa, you had your hand up, and then Fran.
I'm actually all set. Michael stated what I was going to say. It looks like at this point there are 4 people who are watching on the live broadcast. But again, I do agree that it's not intuitive to be able to find that link. I agree with Kim's recommendation that maybe that the label that's given to that on the website could say meetings, agendas, live meeting links, or how to watch additional resources or whatever it's labeled. Isn't really that clear. Just makes it a little
Thank
bit
you.
easier for people to see what's happening.
Including all of us, so thank you. And Fran, you had a comment, and thank you, Michael, as well.
Yeah, it might be a bit sensitive, but I think I need to put it on the table. I understand that this council is advisory, which means that Melissa, who's always very gracious, can either take our advice or not take our advice, correct? And move forward without it. But I do think that there was new and added legislation last year, wasn't there, that talked about the council in collaboration with or whatever. I just need to know, I need to know exactly what our role is. Because I thought that role was strengthened by the Education Committee last year, but I may be wrong on that. And the reason I ask is that people turn to me all the time and say, you're a member of the council. How did you let this happen? Et cetera. And I'm speaking, most recently in terms of waivers. And I said, well, I didn't think that was, the waiver process was never brought to the council other than this is what we did for waivers. And we did not input on the waiver process. But legislators have a very different view of that, or seem to, as do many of my superintendents. And so I need to be really clear on, if I'm just advisory, then I'm just advisory. But if I'm supposed to be doing more, then I need to know that. And I need to be able to tell people, I'm sorry, but I'm advisory. I might have been able to say something, but it could be, taken or rejected. And, I recently went through that with the, with setting up a standards board for certification that is going to go through legislation right now. And we were very careful to say that we were going to be semi-autonomous because we needed it to be more than advisory. But this is advisory, which is different. I need to have that spelled out because I do think people have different expectations of me personally as a member of the council. And I think it would just help me to be able to say what my role is. I did not see the waiver process, right? I mean, the waiver process went forward from the Reading Center, and that's fine. But people said it should have been, wasn't it discussed with the council or whatever? So all I'm saying is I think I just need that more clearly defined for me. I think it was in Senate Bill 1 last year, but it would just help me. And I don't mean to be a pain or anything else, but I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
I do know that Dr. Brummett did raise her hand. So before we just say, I don't want to put a period at the end of the sentence without acknowledging your comment. And perhaps our next session, when we meet, may allocate some time to the specific role and responsibility of the council. Not a lot of time, but just 5 to 10 minutes so that we are all clear at the end of the meeting as to what our role is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to Dr. Brummett and then Dr. Jenkins, please.
Thank you so much. Similar to Fran, I do get a lot of questions as well. And when I look at today in preparation for the meeting, I reviewed what is the stated role, and it didn't really match up with what we do as a council. So I guess I'm just echoing what I've heard said, and I said it before when we did the article review, that we really need to be crystal clear on our role in this council, because people turn to us for, what's going on and, how come this is happening, what's going on with that. So it would be very helpful for us to be able to articulate the type of role we're supposed to have, which right now is basically relaying information that we hear here. I don't feel I have a whole lot of impact on the outcomes, just that I can share what is discussed.
Thank you, Dr. Brummett. And I did see Dr. Jenkins and then back to Fran.
Yeah, thank you.
So Ellen, I'm actually looking at the center's why, how, and what. And based on feedback from Fran and Dr. Brummett, maybe the how needs to be clarified, because the how reads, by leading through change and bridging research to support Connecticut educators, families, policy leaders, and community members in increasing effectiveness of literacy teaching and learning. So perhaps we are still storming around the how and how the council leads through change. And I'm just going to say leads through change right now.
Yes.
And so maybe clarifying that how collectively and individually would lend insight. So I mean, I've had it up because it helps me to stay focused, but in listening, it sounds like that may be a point of in need of clarity or probing.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Point well taken, and the framing of the collective as well as the individual is a striking point for team development. So thank you. And back to Fran.
Yes, let me just say, it's Senate Bill 1. I had a look at it quickly, and I think this is what's been quoted to me, guys. It says, requires the State Department of Ed's Literacy Center to review issues related to the implementation of the reading curriculum models and programs. The bill requires SDE's Literacy Center, in consultation with the Reading Leadership Implementation Council, to review issues related to the school board's implementation, and then it goes forward. So in consultation means something different to me than advice. And all I want to do is get it straight, guys. Just tell me what my job is, because that is, it's confusing. If it's in consultation, then it's in consultation. If it's advice, then it's advice. I'm okay, but this is, it's just causing me issues, and I represent a constituency, and I need to be able to tell them what it is that my role is on the council.
And you know, it's interesting you bring that up because we did talk about that at one of the first council meetings, and Stephen Hernandez was the one who said, I wrote it down, consult, not consent. So that consultative piece being, once again, that advisement. And that was when we were looking at the reading programs. And many of you volunteered to be on that committee to actually review what was being submitted in our first round. So, you know, you had very active roles in that, in which you were reviewing and approving or assisting to approve in the 5. We actually approved 7 at that time. And then through the waiver process, we were able to add more. But we did, no later than July 1st, 2022, you did consult with the director, me, on the programs. And the other one, like you said, Fran, too, is the newer legislation that was referred to in the letters to the districts that Kim was referring to, about reviewing issues related to the implementation and the provision of technical assistance. So those are all things that we are moving forward on doing in consultation or with assistance from all of you. So yeah, thanks. That was really good. I remember writing that down about what Stephen said about consult, not consent. And we had that conversation. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, I just think we need to define it more thoroughly. It'll be very helpful to me.
Yes, I think that our next meeting, that will be an agenda topic for sure. And then I think Kim Healy, did you just raise your hand?
Please ask that we make that something we talk about, because we did consult, that's correct, with the programs that we selected, but we really did not consult on the waivers. Something I've also asked for is explanation of the different types of waivers offered, some kind of justification for those. I have yet to see anything, and I would have liked to have consulted on that. And maybe what could have happened as well to make some of the council members feel better is if we had been able to audit some of the results, so we could explain better to districts, you know, what the different, again, why they were given the different levels and what the criteria were to determine that, because we never received any information of that in advance or since. So, and before we go, I just would like, because I don't want to run out of time, can I highly recommend and urge us to meet again in April? Because, you know, like I said at our last meeting, districts are sitting there waiting for us to come up with a plan forward for them. I mean, they are literally sitting there waiting, trying to determine what their budgets will look like next year, you know, what their staffing needs are going to be like, things like that. And we really do need and, you know, owe them an answer. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. So I do think that at this point, since it's 2:20, we are going to shift to Dr. Hickey. A big thank you to every one of the council members for voicing. Of course, voicing is one of our norms, and listening on the part of others. So I think it's a good time to move toward our crafting the path forward section of kind of revisiting where and what we've put together, with a mindfulness that everything that we agreed to by consensus today will appear in our next meeting. If we do have an April meeting, I know I had that in my notes as well. That seems like a long time until May. We will inform the council, of course, and consider the only thing that we did not really get to was using Robert's rules throughout, but from what I heard as facilitator, it seemed like it was necessary for the minutes, but perhaps not necessary for the rest of the meeting and any decisions that the council makes. So Dr. Hickey.
Okay, and Irene, if you could help by showing the PowerPoint, that would be lovely. Thank you. So once again, thank you all. We so appreciate your patience and understanding with the anomaly of our technical issues today. So I don't know if there's a way that we can share the PowerPoint in the PowerPoint presentation mode, or if it's just in this mode. If it's in this mode, it's pretty small and I can read it. But once again, as you know, in our meetings, we share our norms, and our current norms are about that equitable participation, which include the pausing, being open, allowing the silence, sharing the air. We talked about the active listening, which includes the paraphrasing, being present in our meetings, and respecting all perspectives. So those were our norms there. Per legislation, we've talked about this too with the next slide. We do have legislative responsibilities, which includes that consultation and assisting the center and the director, assisting and informing the activities of the center, facilitating communication in the field, and disseminating the information, tools, and services made available. So, for example, the strategy that was created, that was something that everyone could have been disseminating and sharing, developing and publishing our annual goals, which we do every year, and meeting at least once every 2 months. So those are our legislative responsibilities. We did create together the why, how, and the what, hearing today from Melissa with a suggestion on the storming around the how. And, you know, we did even change the why at one point to include the independently and proficiently, as many of the members wanted to do there. So here is our why, our how, and our what. And then last but not least, the council goals that you have established, which included continuing to review and research and analyze that science of reading, building upon our strategy to include birth through grade 12, evaluating and identifying supports regarding K-3 assessment and instruction, and supporting and communicating the activities, the information, and the services provided by the center. And, you know, it's interesting listening to the conversation too, you know, as we go and craft forward, many districts have already started crafting their path forward. With the professional learning that I shared last time, we had 12 slots, and with one particular, which is working with the Hill for Literacy on choosing the programs, we have those slots filled and districts are moving forward, getting their advice and coaching support with each step of the way. We have over 180 districts, and the majority are currently piloting or reviewing materials now. And You know, this is information we've gathered from the districts by talking to them on things they are applying for in their grants. So this is really exciting news. People are moving forward and they're very excited to do so. We're also working on webinars where districts are going to be sharing their stories of this, and we'll be posting those for everyone. Some districts have opened their doors and said, come on in, see what we're doing. We would love for you to come and see some of these programs in action. So districts are very excited. You know, we're hearing so many positive, wonderful things about this movement forward. So thank you so much, Dr. Stoltz, for giving me this time to kind of just review. And I appreciate the conversation we had today. I think it'll help clarify a lot of things moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Hickey. Appreciate you. And Kim, comment?
We skipped agenda item number 4.
Okay, so I do know we have several proposed additions from our conversation today. Was there something that the group, the council, has to add to proposed agenda items and topics? Lisa Thomas?
Is it possible for you to just remind us of what you have currently on your list for future agenda items?
Yes, I'll
Thank
just
you.
wade through my notes here.
I believe those were what Irene captured in the PowerPoint last time and we discussed as a group.
Well, I know that Fran brought, an issue forward today about further clarity in our role.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
So, there were things that came
Correct.
up during the conversation today that I don't think we want to lose.
Correct.
Oh,
And
I thought you
so-
meant from the last time. I apologize.
Nope, that's quite all right. I do have a list that we want to, during our next meeting as a proposed agenda item, is to clarify our how. I wrote on my own behalf, I'd like to clarify the why, and also be very clear with our roles and responsibilities. Are we advisory? Are we consulting? Looking at the legislation and making sure that we have a collective and individual responsibility to the council that aligns with the legislation. So I think we will be spending time on that for next meeting. And Dr. Hickey, I'm not sure how it works when we have a meeting that is proposed for April. Do we have a date that we put out today? How does that work?
That's what we'll have to do, is pick a date together. And if we
Okay,
don't have
and then-
time, we'll have to do it by email where we can pick a date and see how it works. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna have to do, because
Okay.
I do see Dr. Brummett's hand is still up too.
And also Dr. Lucera. So,
Oh, sorry, I
Dr.
missed you,
Brummett.
Tim.
Oh, Dr. Brummett and then Dr. Lucera.
Yes, in addition to my agreement with our roles and responsibilities, which I know we've all said many times, I had made a suggestion by email, if we could entertain a guest speaker. Colleagues of mine have recommended Dr. Rachel Gabriel, who's got a lot of expertise in this process. Perhaps she could come in and speak about her experiences with reading and implementation and those sorts of things. Numerous superintendents have recommended her to me.
Thank you. So noted. Thank you, Dr. Brummett. And also Dr. Lucera.
I see
And then
Lisa's
Lisa.
hand was raised before mine, so I don't want to step on
Okay.
anyone.
Thanks.
Uh,
I was still thinking about proposed agenda items and topics. If we could continue to have on there crafting the path forward, because we still haven't had a conversation. We've just had a we've just been told information, but we haven't had a conversation yet around that. So I would appreciate that continuing as an item, please.
Mhm. Thank you. And Dr. Lucera, thank you for
Maybe I'm
your
gonna
deference.
answer my own question. How are agendas set? Is this the process?
So that's a great question in that some of the feedback from the discussion around the article, one comment was made about setting a collective agenda. In other words, perhaps how it would work is a draft agenda is put out and then there's time for others to contribute proposed topics. We haven't really delved deeply into that as part of the role of the council members. So right now, I believe it comes from the center. Is that accurate, Dr. Hickey?
Well, it's been twofold. We've been asking people along the way, what do they want to see on the agenda? And we've been populating in that way. And then also doing, so for example, when we called the meeting December, that was very much to inform the council ahead of time of the waiver process, of the programs and curriculum models that bubbled up as a result of that process. So sometimes we drive the agenda. But like you're saying, a lot of times if someone brings something up and they want it on the agenda, like last time, Dr. Lucero had a question we weren't able to answer. So we put that question on the next agenda to answer that. That's all I can think of right now on the top of my head.
Okay. So then by example, with Dr. Brummett's suggestion for a guest speaker, then we would entertain that through the council. Maybe we can talk of that. I'm not sure how that comes to fruition is my question.
I think, yeah, we would have to talk about that internally as well. So thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Couldn't we just
Go
use
ahead.
consensus? If anyone objects to her speaking to us?
I think it
Well,
would
we
be
haven't-
helpful to,
Yeah.
like, the rationale for proposing why any guest speaker would come forward. And if it
Right,
was a bio that perhaps the council could review and, you know,
right,
what question are they answering? I think we just need a little bit more for any guest speaker.
correct.
And then we would reach consensus to say, yes, that would be a valuable learning
Right.
experience, I guess, for the council.
Right.
And to your point, Irene, perhaps that's something that we could work on behind the scenes is putting some kind of, 3-point structure together on when we want to have a speaker to come in, that there's certain things that we look at in terms of their purpose.
Mhm.
I'm sorry to interject, but right on the website for the council, it says very specifically that we are to meet at least every 2 months and may consult with representatives from public, private, and philanthropic organizations. I mean, I would argue that the council has the ability to decide who speaks to us and who doesn't.
And as a facilitator, I'm suggesting that we have some kind of structure so that the council can use that structure. It would be on behalf of the council, not me, not my personal self. So just so that you know that it's equitable. So we have gone past
Hello?
our time. It's
Did
2:33
it?
and I am
How are you?
Maureen, you're
Dr.
live.
Brummett. Thank you. And so we are going to close the meeting. And so I thank you all for your participation today, and we will be sending out maybe a couple different dates for our April meeting, if that's what the decision is. And then we also have our May meeting already scheduled, May 21st, 1 o'clock to 2:30, and also not just the time, but also the place will be determined.
Can I ask you to just be
I would
mindful of
recommend that we
Passover?
just kind of keep what we usually do, which is the third Tuesday at 1 o'clock, if that works. Just a suggestion.
I think we can probably make that work if it's already the structure of the council expectation for that date.
I'm sorry, did you say the third Tuesday? Okay,
That's
I'm
what
just
was
asking you to
raised,
avoid scheduling during Passover. That's all, which is Monday, the 22nd and Tuesday, the 23rd would be the two key days during that time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us know, Lisa. All right, thank you all, and until the next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.